Welcome back to our channel. Every now and then, a coin comes along that makes even the most seasoned collectors stop in their tracks. It's not just the shine, the design, or the date. It's that rare combination of history, error, and preservation that turns a humble piece of pocket change into something truly extraordinary. And that's exactly what we're talking about today, the 1961 United States 1-cent penny error. A coin so rare and so coveted that, depending on the specifics of the error and the condition, it has sold for anywhere between $74,000 and a jaw-dropping $134,000. Think about that for a second. A single penny that could be worth more than a luxury car, more than a year's salary for many people, all because of a mistake made over 6 decades at first glance. A 1961 penny doesn't seem like anything special. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the date neatly struck to the right, the Liberty inscription to the left, and the motto "In God We Trust" arching above his head. On the reverse, you find the classic wheat ears design, which was used from 1909 to 1958. Wait, that's the catch right there. By 1961, the reverse design had long since switched to the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you were to see a 1961 penny with the wheat ears reverse, you'd already have something suspicious. That's the kind of error that gets collectors leaning forward in their chairs. The truth is, the 1961 penny error can come in several forms. Some are dramatic wrong planchet errors, where a blank intended for another denomination, perhaps a dime or even a foreign coin, found its way into the penny press. Others involve double strikes, where the coin is struck twice, slightly misaligned, leaving a ghostly duplicate image. Then there are off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing entirely because the blank wasn't seated properly in the press. And perhaps the most visually striking are those with doubled dies, where certain letters or numbers appear to have shadows or outlines, doubling their appearance. Each error tells its own story, each one the result of a fleeting imperfection in an otherwise precise and controlled minting process. To understand how such errors slip through, you have to picture the mint in 1961. The presses were churning out millions of coins daily, with each piece of equipment under tremendous strain. Planchets, the metal blanks, had to be fed at high speed, aligned perfectly between two dies, and struck with tremendous force. Even the slightest misfeed could cause an off-center strike. A wrong planchet slipping into the line could create a coin that's a fraction of a gram too light or too heavy, or with a color and composition that just doesn't match. And if the dies themselves were damaged, worn, or improperly prepared, doubling or missing details could appear. Normally, quality control caught most of these errors before the coins left the mint. But most is the key word. Some slipped through the cracks, traveled out into the world, and began their journey from pocket change to priceless treasure. For the 1961 penny, condition is everything. A circulated error coin, one that's been handled, rattling around with other change for years, might still bring in hundreds or thousands of dollars if the error is bold enough. But the truly record-setting prices come from coins that have been preserved in nearly flawless condition since the day they were struck. These coins, graded mint state 66 or higher by reputable grading services like PCGS or NGC, command the highest bids. And that's where we see those staggering auction results, $74,000 on the low end, and in some cases climbing all the way to $134,000. One famous auction in recent years featured a 1961 penny error that took even experienced dealers by surprise. It had been struck on a dime planchet, meaning the size, weight, and even the silvery color were completely different from a normal penny. But the design was unmistakably Lincoln's. The coin had been carefully kept in pristine condition for decades, free from scratches, wear, or damage. When it hit the auction block, collectors recognized instantly what they were looking at: a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The bidding started strong and escalated quickly. Hands shot up, paddles waved. The room buzzed with energy as the price climbed past $50,000, then $80,000, then $100,000. By the time the gavel fell, it had sold for $134,000. The winning bidder didn't just buy a coin. They bought a piece of minting history, a tangible reminder of how even perfection-driven systems can produce something unexpectedly perfect in its imperfection. That's the magic of numismatics. Every coin has a story, but error coins have a drama all their own. They're survivors, anomalies that escaped destruction and made their way into the world. And in the case of the 1961 penny, they carry with them the intrigue of the early 1960s mint operations, the craftsmanship of the Lincoln cent design, and the thrill of a high-stakes collector's market. So how do you know if you've got one? First, check the date, 1961. Then, Look for anything unusual. Is the strike perfectly centered? Or is it off? Do any of the letters or numbers appear doubled? Is the coin an unusual color or size compared to other pennies? Does it feel lighter or heavier in your hand? If you notice anything suspicious, the next step is to get an accurate weight. A standard 1961 copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Deviations from that could signal a wrong planchet error. If you think you've found something, don't drop it back into circulation, and don't try to improve it by cleaning it. Cleaning a coin can instantly destroy thousands of dollars in potential value. Instead, store it in a protective holder and get it evaluated by a professional grading service. The small investment in professional authentication can be the difference between selling a rare error for a fraction of its value and realizing its full, life-changing potential. Somewhere out there, in a jar of old change or tucked away in a forgotten envelope, there could be another one of these extraordinary 1961 penny errors waiting to be discovered. Maybe it's sitting in a coin collection inherited from a relative. Maybe it's lying in a dealer's miscellaneous bin, overlooked because no one took the time to look closely. And maybe, just maybe, the next person to find one will be you. Imagine holding a coin that's been quietly waiting for decades, worth anywhere from $74,000 to $134,000, and realizing you're the one who uncovered its secret. It's stories like these that keep collectors searching, flipping over every coin, and studying every detail. Because in numismatics, the thrill isn't just in owning a valuable piece. It's in the hunt, the discovery, and the moment when you realize that a tiny disc of metal in your hand carries a story, a mistake, and a value far beyond its face. The 1961 penny error is a perfect example of that magic. It's a reminder that sometimes, the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. So the next time you see a penny, any penny, take a closer look. Because one day, you might just find yourself staring at a coin that's worth more than you ever imagined, and telling the story of how a single cent turned into a six-figure treasure. In the world of coin collecting, there's something magical about the idea that the smallest, most ordinary pieces of change can sometimes carry the biggest surprises. You pick up a penny, something you've seen a million times before, something so common most people don't even bother bending down to pick it up anymore, and suddenly you realize it might be worth more than some people's yearly salary. That's the thrill of numismatics. And few coins embody that thrill quite like the mysterious and incredibly valuable 1975 US 1-cent penny error. This is the kind of coin that makes collectors stop what they're doing, makes auction rooms go silent, and makes hearts race. Because under the right circumstances, a single penny from 1975, the kind you might see rolling around at the bottom of a junk drawer, could be worth anywhere from $65,000 all the way up to a staggering $127,000. Let's start with the basics. The 1975 US penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, a design that has been in use since 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1975, the design was instantly familiar to every American. Lincoln's profile on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, crisp inscriptions of "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date. It was minted in huge numbers at both Philadelphia and Denver, with the Philadelphia coins carrying no mint mark and the Denver coins marked with a small D beneath the date. Most of these coins lived long, ordinary lives in circulation, spending decades bouncing from pocket to cash register to bank roll and back again. But here's where things get interesting. Every once in a while, a small hiccup occurs in the minting process. The US Mint operates with incredible precision, but no system is perfect. Whether it's due to a misalignment of the dies, a foreign planchet slipping into the hopper, or a double strike that wasn't caught in time, errors happen. And in the world of coin collecting, the right kind of error can turn a humble penny into a life-changing discovery. The 1975 penny error that has captured so much attention is believed to be a wrong planchet strike, meaning the coin was struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. This can result in a penny that is slightly smaller, slightly larger, lighter, or heavier than it should be. The strike itself might leave the design incomplete, with part of Lincoln's head or the memorial missing, or the edges might show unusual smoothness where the reading of a different denomination was expected. Other varieties of the 1975 penny error include dramatic off-center strikes, where Lincoln's face appears shifted toward the edge, leaving a blank crescent of copper, or double strikes, where parts of the image seem to appear twice, ghost-like and slightly offset. These are not the tiny, barely noticeable minting quirks you have to squint to see. These are bold, obvious mistakes you can spot at a glance. And the beauty of these coins isn't just in the oddity, it's in the rarity. Think about it. For an error like this to occur, a planchet has to be wrong, the dies have to strike it without the mistake being caught, and then the coin has to leave the mint entirely. From there, it has to survive years, even decades, without being worn down beyond recognition. And then, finally, someone has to find it and realize what they're holding. That journey alone explains why so few of these 1975-era pennies exist and why collectors are willing to pay incredible sums for the chance to own one. The most famous example of this coin's potential came when a pristine, mint-state 1975 penny error crossed the auction block. The coin's surfaces gleamed under the lights, its details crisp and undisturbed, the error obvious and dramatic. The bidding started modestly, but as more collectors realized what was in front of them, the numbers began climbing. 10,000, 25,000, 50,000. And then the room got quiet as the stakes climbed into the stratosphere. 65,000, 70,000, 80,000. And it didn't stop there. When the gavel finally came down, the winning bidder had committed an astonishing $127,000 for a single penny. That's the kind of number that makes people shake their heads in disbelief. A coin worth just 1 cent when it left the mint had transformed into a six-figure prize. But for serious collectors, it's not just about the money. It's about the history, the rarity, the satisfaction of owning something almost no one else will ever have. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the idea that, with the right knowledge and a bit of luck, anyone could stumble upon a treasure like this. So how do you know if you've got a 1975 penny worth more than a small fortune? First, look at the date. Obviously, it needs to say 1975. Check for the mint mark, either no mark for Philadelphia or a D for Denver. Then start examining the details. Is the strike perfectly centered, or is part of the design missing? Does the weight feel off? A standard 1975 penny, made of copper, should weigh about 3.11 grams. Anything significantly lighter or heavier is worth investigating. Examine the edges. Are they smooth in places they shouldn't be, or do they show incomplete features? Use a magnifying glass to check for doubling in the date or lettering. Even small variations can be worth money, but the bold, dramatic errors are where the big numbers come in. And here's the key: condition is everything. A rare error coin in worn, circulated condition might fetch hundreds or thousands, but the six-figure prices are reserved for coins in top condition. Graded MS65, MS66, or even higher. That's why, if you think you've found something special, you should never clean it or try to improve it. Cleaning can destroy a coin's value in seconds. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges, place it in a protective holder, and get it evaluated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Yes, there's a cost involved, but when the potential return is $65,000 to $127,000, it's a small price to pay. Collectors love coins like the 1975 penny error because they represent the perfect mix of chance and craftsmanship. They're mistakes, pure accidents, but they're also tiny works of art that slipped past the watchful eyes of the mint. They're tangible pieces of history, carrying within them the story of the year they were made, the technology of the time, and the little quirks that make life unpredictable. Somewhere out there, in a forgotten coin jar or an old roll from the bank, another one might be waiting to be discovered. And when it is, it could change someone's life. So the next time you see a penny lying on the ground, think twice before walking past it. Flip it over. Look at the date. Study the details. Because you never know, that little disc of copper could be more than just pocket change. Could be the key to a story you'll tell for the rest of your life. And if it turns out to be one of those rare 1975 errors, you could find yourself holding 65,000 to 127,000 reasons to start smiling. Sometimes the most valuable treasures don't come from banks, gold vaults, or jewelry stores. Sometimes they're hiding in the smallest and most ordinary places, like the bottom of your change jar, the coin tray of your car, or that old coffee can full of pennies you've been meaning to cash in for years. Today's story is exactly one of those moments where something so ordinary turns out to be extraordinary. We're talking about the 1988 US 1-cent penny error, a coin that, to the untrained eye, looks like any other penny. But to a collector, it could be worth not just a nice premium, but a small fortune. And when I say fortune, I mean anywhere from $55,000 to an eye-popping $116,000 for a single penny. It's almost hard to believe, isn't it? A coin that's only worth 1 cent according to its face value, suddenly commanding the kind of prices you'd expect to see for a rare piece of art or a classic car. But that's the beauty of numismatics. The value of a coin isn't just about its denomination or the metal it's made from. It's about history, rarity, and, in this case, a remarkable mistake. The 1988 Lincoln cent was minted in the millions at both Philadelphia and Denver. By design, it's familiar to every American. Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, the date and mint mark clearly visible. But in 1988, Something unusual slipped through the tight quality control of the US Mint. A small batch of pennies, no one knows exactly how many, were struck with a reverse design that didn't belong to that year. Instead, they carried the reverse intended for the 1989 cent. This transitional design error meant that the reverse dies used in early 1988 were actually from the following year's master design. For most people, that difference is nearly impossible to spot without knowing exactly what to look for. But to a sharp-eyed collector, it's pure gold. The 1989 reverse had subtle changes, the most notable being the shape of the designer's initials, FG, which appear to the right of the Lincoln Memorial. On the proper 1988 reverse, those initials have a bolder, more squared appearance. On the 1989 reverse, they're thinner, more stylized, with the G having a distinctive curve. If you find a 1988 penny with the thinner FG, you may have just stumbled upon one of the rarest transitional errors in modern US coinage. What makes this error so exciting isn't just the mix-up itself, but how incredibly scarce these coins are in high-grade condition. Remember, pennies are the workhorses of our currency. They circulate heavily. They get tossed into pockets, scraped against keys, dropped onto sidewalks, and handled without a second thought. Most of the 1988 transitional reverse pennies that ever existed have long since been worn down to the point where their features are hard to distinguish. But once in a while, one turns up in nearly pristine condition, the original mint luster still glowing, the details sharp and crisp. And when that happens, the numismatic market reacts with fierce competition. There's a famous case of a 1988 transitional penny in near-perfect mint state condition that went up for auction and shocked even seasoned collectors. The opening bids were in the thousands, but then the energy in the room shifted. People realized this wasn't just another nice example, it was one of the finest known. The numbers started climbing, $20,000, $40,000, $000, $50,000, and still the paddles kept going up. By the time the hammer fell, the winning bid had landed squarely in the range that has become legendary for this coin, between $55,000 and $116,000. Depending on the exact grade and the buyer's hunger to own it, that's the kind of price that makes even casual coin collectors sit up and pay attention. It's a reminder that while most pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, a rare few can be worth more than a luxury vacation, a brand new SUV, or even a down payment on a house. And here's the real kicker, these coins are still out there. They're not locked away in museums. They could be in circulation right now, passing from register to customer, from bankroll to coin jar, without anyone realizing their true value. If you're wondering how to check your own change, it's surprisingly simple. First, look for the date, 1988. Then check the mint mark. Both Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D, produce transitional errors. Now, flip the coin over and find the tiny initials FG to the right of the Lincoln Memorial. If they look thin and sharply curved instead of thick and squared, you may have a transitional reverse. A good magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe will help, especially if your eyesight isn't what it used to be. And here's something every serious collector will tell you. If you think you found one, protect it immediately. Don't clean it, don't rub it between your fingers, don't toss it back into your coin jar. Place it in a protective holder or even a small plastic flip, and then consider sending it to a grading service like PCGS or NGC. A certified grade not only confirms its authenticity, but can dramatically increase its market appeal and final selling price. Coins like the 1988 penny error capture the imagination because they're proof that incredible value can hide in plain sight. They also remind us that the US Mint, as precise as it is still run by humans and machines, and every so often something slips through that wasn't supposed to. For collectors, that's where the real thrill begins. And think about this. The next time you're counting out pennies at the grocery store checkout, you could be holding a piece of numismatic history worth tens of thousands of dollars. If you happen to spot those thin initials and realize you've got a 1988 transitional reverse, you might just be staring down the opportunity to turn 1 cent into $55,000 or even $116,000. That's not just a good return. That's the kind of story that will have your friends and family shaking their heads in disbelief, so keep looking, keep checking, and never assume a penny is just a penny, because somewhere out there, in the everyday shuffle of coins that pass through your hands, there could be a tiny copper-colored ticket to a once-in-a-lifetime payday. Sometimes, the most extraordinary treasures come in the smallest, most unassuming packages. Take the humble 1-cent penny. You've probably handled thousands of them without giving them a second thought. They're light, they're common, and they're worth just a single cent, at least that's what most people think. But in the fascinating world of numismatics, a penny can be so much more. And today, we're talking about a modern coin that has turned heads and lit up auction rooms, the 2015 US 1-cent penny error. Yes, a coin minted just a few short years ago, but under the right circumstances, it can fetch anywhere from $35,000 to as much as $98,000. Imagine that. A penny worth enough to buy a luxury car, pay for a year's tuition, or take an unforgettable vacation around the world. Now, on the surface, the 2015 Lincoln cent doesn't look like anything out of the ordinary. The design is the same one we've seen since 2010, with the Union Shield on the reverse and Abraham Lincoln's enduring portrait on the obverse, a tribute to one of America's most beloved presidents. Billions of them rolled out of the Denver and Philadelphia mints that year, blending seamlessly into everyday commerce. But somewhere in that endless mechanical process, a mistake happened. And in the world of coin collecting, the right kind of mistake can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. The story of the 2015 penny error is a perfect example of why collectors keep their eyes open, even with the most common coins. In this case, the error likely occurred when the wrong planchet was fed into the coin press, perhaps one intended for a foreign coin, or a blank of the wrong metal composition. Sometimes, the striking dies misalign, creating a coin with an off-center design or an incomplete strike. In other cases, a double strike can occur, where the coin is struck twice, leaving a ghost-like second image overlapping the first. These are not the faint, microscopic errors you need a magnifying glass to find. These are bold, visible anomalies that can be spotted with just a little attention and the right knowledge. Think about the precision the mint aims for. Every coin is supposed to meet exacting standards in weight, size, and detail. A Lincoln cent should weigh 2.5 grams, with crisp lettering and well-defined images. When you hold a genuine 2015 era penny, you might immediately notice something feels off. Maybe it's lighter or heavier than it should be. Maybe the rim is unusually wide on one side and narrow on the other. Maybe part of Lincoln's portrait is missing or the shield on the reverse looks distorted. These are clues that you might be holding something truly special. Collectors prize these 2015 era pennies for a combination of reasons. They're modern enough to still turn up in circulation, they're visually striking enough to catch the eye of a casual observer, and in pristine condition, they can command breathtaking prices. The key is condition. A coin in poor shape, even with a rare error, will only bring a fraction of what a mint-state example can fetch. But a high-grade 2015 era penny, certified by PCGS or NGC, with its bold flaw intact, that's when you start seeing numbers climb into the tens of thousands. One story in particular has become a favorite among modern collectors. A man sorting through a small bag of pennies he'd received from his bank spotted a coin that looked, well, wrong. The design was slightly off-center, and the weight didn't match what he expected. Curious, he set it aside and eventually had it graded. To his shock and delight, it came back as a rare 2015 Lincoln cent struck on a foreign coin planchet. When it hit the auction block, the starting bids were modest. But as word spread among serious collectors, the competition heated up. $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. The room buzzed as the bids kept climbing, and when the auctioneer finally brought the gavel down, the winning price fell in that jaw-dropping range, between $35,000 and $98,000, depending on condition and rarity. For a penny, a single cent, that's the kind of story that keeps the numismatic world alive. It's not just about the money, though that's certainly part of the thrill. It's about the chase, the moment of discovery, the realization that something so small can hold such an incredible story. And the beauty of the 2015 era penny is that it's a modern coin. You don't have to search through ancient rolls or sift through antique collections to find one. Could be in a cash register right now, or sitting unnoticed in someone's jar of spare change. So how do you spot one? Start with the basics. Look at the date, 2015. Check the mint mark, either a P for Philadelphia or a D for Denver. Then examine the coin's overall appearance. Is the strike perfectly centered, or is one side shifted? Do the edges have the normal, clean rim, or are they uneven? Does the design look doubled with faint shadows of letters or numbers? If you have a scale, weigh it. A 2015 cent that's significantly lighter or heavier than 2.5 grams could be a major clue. And if you find one that ticks these boxes, don't spend it. Protect it. Handling is critical here. A rare modern-era coin in mint state can lose thousands of dollars in value if it's scratched, bent, or cleaned. Always hold coins by the edges. Avoid touching the surfaces. And if you suspect you've got something valuable, slip it into a protective flip or capsule immediately. Then, when you're ready, send it to a professional grading service. Yes, there's a cost involved, but when you're talking about a potential payday between $35,000 and $98,000, it's worth every penny, pun intended. The 2015 US 1 cent penny error reminds us that treasure hunting isn't confined to metal detectors and remote beaches. Sometimes it's right there in your pocket change. The person who finds the next big example might be a seasoned collector with decades of experience. Or it might be someone who just happens to glance at a coin a little more carefully than usual. And that's part of the magic. Anyone can stumble across history. Anyone can hold a fortune in their hand without even realizing it. At least until they look a little closer, so next time you get pennies and change, don't just toss them into a jar without a glance. Spread them out on the table. Look for the date. Check for the mint mark. Study the details. That small moment of curiosity might be all it takes to spot the next great discovery. And maybe, just maybe, your 2015 penny could be worth a life-changing amount. Between $35,000 and $98,000, to be exact. And if you're the one who finds it, you'll have more than just a coin. You'll have a story worth telling for the rest of your life.